Talking with Jam. Happy New Year. Us. And I know it's only been a week into the new year already, but hope that week and a half well so far. Lord knows. Ah, so, yeah, so welcome. And today we're going to be talking about 3D printing specifically and miniatures and terrain for your tabletop needs. I specifically use it for Dungeons and Dragons, and that's been, I want to say, almost all right. Is that better? Does that sound better now? Okay. It doesn't matter how long you stream, folks. Whether you're a newbie at it like I am, or you've been doing it for years, there will always be technical issues that you think you have worked out, but aren't. So, yeah, it's been about 3 years, give or take, of not only DMing but 3D printing, and yes, my darling bought it for me on Valentine's Day as a Valentine's Day gift, and I've been printing ever since. So essentially, so yeah, what we're gonna do is, and I wanted to break it down by by a couple of things because there's a lot to go over when it comes to 3D printing. Well, I mean, the first thing you really want to think about is time and money, right? So one would assume and hope that, given that you are most likely DM at this point, and this doesn't have to be just for people who are beginning to dungeon master or anything like that, or who have been doing it for some time. This is for anybody, because you could be a player and you want to. You've bought a horse in the game that you're playing right now, or you want everybody to see exactly what your tent looks like when you make camp. Whatever it is. Um, this is really, I guess it's more of like a primer for what you want to do as far as 3D printing goes. And thank you for the lurk, Polaroid. Polaroid, by the way, my son, like for realsies, and he is actually the individual who inspired me to 3D print, because he started doing it before I did. Not only that, he is an amazing graphics designer. Super finger guns. Yeah, and he's an amazing graphic designer. He's done some emotes for me for other streamers as well, and he uses that to also make designs for 3D printing as well. So if it actually wasn't for him, I really wouldn't have began thinking, hey, maybe I can 3D print, or maybe I should do this. So all thanks to Polaroid. Uh, oh yeah. You're blushing. Okay, sure. But no, seriously, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have started on this path of 3D printing. So thank you. Cheers, my man. If you're curious what I'm drinking, um, one of my New Year's resolutions is to drink all the alcohol that I've been given for the holidays. I'm doing it in a safe manner, uh, and it's going to be over time. But some of you probably are in the same boat where you got bottles of alcohol for the holidays. So right now I am trying to finish up my bottle of sake, and then I will proceed into the bottles of Kahlua and vodka that I did get for my Caucasians. Oh, I'm sorry, White Russians. Caucasians is is what they're called in The Big Lebowski, which happens to be my favorite movie. All right. Anyway, hey DJ Atkins, welcome, welcome. Happy New Year. Welcome to the stream. So yeah, if it, as I was saying, if it wasn't for Polaroid, I wouldn't have got the idea into my head of 3D printing. And then when I began to DM, it all kind of you know, it all worked out. It came into focus, that how much I could do and how much it would help me as a storyteller. It helped me because again, I'll get into more of it as we go on, but some of the places where you can find these 3D prints for free to print for your games, some of those things actually, just looking at the prints, inspire you like, hey, how could I use that for my game if you're a dungeon master. Also, if you are creating your own mini for a game that you currently are in, and say, for example, you go to Hero Forge or Eldritch Foundry or any place that allows you to create your own minis and download a 3D printing file, which is called an STL file. You can, it's good for you to know, well, what kind of 3D printing should I do? Because you have options, which we will discuss. But a lot of that can inspire you. And if you've seen any of my talking with the DMs, you know that I'm very big into inspiration. I'm very big into things helping you and inspiring you in the games that you play, or storytelling, or whatever it is that you do. So yeah, some of these places where you can find these files to print these minis or the terrains can inspire you to come up with really great stories, or give you really great ideas about your character. So, all right, so let's start out. So first off, you have a I will say this. We'll actually go into like you're killing me, hon. You're killing me. Doing the best I can with what I got here. Hold on a second. Let me see if setting up the volume will help a little bit. Hold on. Yeah, no, I know. I think it actually might have to do with my noise gate that I have on OBS. I'm gonna check it out real quick. Please bear with us. I appreciate your patience. Let's see. All right, so yeah, it looks like it might actually be my noise gate. So, is that better? Hey, Southern, good to see you. Awesome. I'm glad you made it. Yeah, I think I think it happens to be. Yeah, I think it's. Hold on. All right. Yeah, I think it's a combination of things. Not gonna, not gonna mess with it 100% right now, but I think we've got I think we got most of it solved, and I'll take care of the rest off stream. Um. All right. So as I was saying, when you're ready to 3D print, and you do have options available, there are a couple of things. The barrier to entry on 3D printing is not as difficult as it used to be. And if you're a beginner, I'm going to start with a solid foundation of knowing nothing. Right? Um, you want to think about how much you want to spend and how much time you can give to start learning about 3D printing, because unfortunately I'm not going to be one of those people that says, "Oh yeah, it's easy, you can do it." It becomes easier when you put the time in to really think about how the program works, how the programs work, how 3D printing itself works, and learn all of that. Um, nice, Southern. Nice. That's really nice. Yeah, first expense, hundreds of dollars of Tylenol. Because yes, you will be experimenting with settings and things like that, and trying to get things as perfect as you can to, because you need, again, with as with anything, you need a very good solid foundation for your prints. Otherwise, they will not turn out well. And what that means, and again, I'll get into that. What that means is a lot of time and a lot of headaches, hence the Tylenol. But once you start learning the gist of it, and again, I'm by no means an expert, especially in 3D printing at all. I am a gifted amateur, and gifted only because uh, I took the time out to really kind of look into it. I hate using the word research, because the reality is it's not really research. It is going on Google and doing searches, which is technically not research. Research involves so much more than that, and so I kind of do hate when people say, "Oh, I did my research." Uh, you can say due diligence. I tend to say that a lot, or your Google foo, or search. Um, and it only became easier for me because of the searching that I did on Google and online, trying to figure out what others have done before me, why it works for them, and how I can make it work for me. So that's really, I mean, that's what you should think of, because most people, and myself included, when I started thinking about 3D printing, uh, I wanted to jump into it, with both feet, uh, and not really. I was like, "Ooh, that looks cool. I want to do that," and didn't really kind of think about all of these things. I didn't have anybody tell me that except for my son, um, and he makes this shit look easy. So, for me, it was like, "Oh, if he could do it, I could do it." No, it was not as easy as he made it look. Uh, so so yeah, you really want to you want to think about, okay, how do I want to do this? Do I want to put in the time to make these prints, to learn about 3D printing, to learn about the machine? Because that's the other part of this, is you want to learn about the machine, because like any machine, eventually parts fail, parts break, and not just through manufacturing problems, but because, over wear and tear of use. And trust me, 3D printers are made so they can actually use, uh, so they can be used consistently for over a long period of time, but doesn't mean it's going to last forever. Yeah, Southern. If it wasn't for Polaroid, he's the one that actually got me into thinking about 3D printing and eventually doing it, because he got a 3D printer first. He started doing things, and it got me motivated to start doing it myself. Um, Down to it. So, um, so essentially, yeah, you want to think about all those things, and then you want to think about the kind of printer you want to get. Now, getting into the hobby, and again, the barrier for entry to this is much lower than it used to be, but it's still an investment. Um, you want to think about the types of printers that exist, and as it stands right now, there are two main types of printers, of 3D printers that exist, that are usable for printing miniatures, printing anything basically. But if you're just looking for printing miniatures and terrain, there's two types. There is what's called an FDM printer, and this printer uses filament. And the filament is essentially a plastic. It's on a spool, and it is fed into the machine and prints that way. And the other type of 3D printer is a resin printer. And this is where I'm going to use all sorts of technical terms because I don't know any of them. There's resin goo, that essentially laser. There's like a mini laser, kind of like you've seen possibly in some sci-fi movies, where in the goo the laser actually hardens the actual print as it slowly kind of pulls it out. Um, and it is a goo, or is a resin goo. Again, I don't know the technical terms for these things. Um, Specifically, the resin printer I don't know a lot about, because I have the first one. I have an FDM printer, which is a filament printer, and I'm gonna go into all those technical terms there. So you want to ask yourself, okay, what kind of costs? Again, talk about investment. And so now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually bring up, uh, and again, this is all my personal experience, what I've used, um, and but again, I encourage you to consistently to do your due diligence and search out what's going to be the best for you. So the very first 3D printer I got, and again, this was my lovely wife bought it for me for Valentine's Day, was this one. This is the Monoprice MP Select Mini 3D printer. And as you can see with the price, it is not that expensive, $219. And again, it is, let's see, make these things a little bigger. All right, so and as you can see, it does not take up a lot of space. It is small, so if you're looking to make huge major prints, this might not be for you. And I will say, From my personal experience, that this is probably the best starter printer for someone who has never 3D printed before and is looking to learn the basics, how to 3D print, what you're looking at. Um, and again, this is an FDM. This is a filament printer. This piece right here is actually what holds the filament on. It's a spool, and essentially, let's see, yeah, you can see the spool right here of filament it's fed into the machine. And this, I think this was a really good way for me to learn the basics. And that is, and if you don't want to ever like put more money into it than what you see the cost is here. Hey Coyote, welcome. Good to see you. If you don't want to put any more money into it than the 219 or somewhat dollars that the mini costs, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Hope you and Lorna are doing good. I'm glad you made it. Yeah, we're starting the comparisons of 3D printers right now. And we're on the first one, basically the first one I ever got. And it was a really good printer for me. I did a lot. It's really good. I will say this: it's very good for terrain. Um, and if you're looking for terrain, this is probably, and again, being starting out, this is probably a good one for you. Nice, Coyote. That's great. Well, I hope your session goes well. And Lawrence is, yeah, I know she's busy for Monday for her birthday stream. So I'm gonna try my best to be there for it. I'm working from home, but yeah, I'm glad. Thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I'm doing my best for Lauren's birthday stream on Monday. I'm working from home, but I'm gonna try and drop by. But yeah, I hope your campaign goes really well. Um, and yeah, maybe you might want to use a 3D printer in the future for some of the stuff that you're doing. But yeah, the Monoprice Mini is a really good starter one. I was able to make miniatures from this printer. Not the best quality, but for my purposes, they were pretty good. And again, if you can get some decent miniatures printed from the Monoprice, that is a good indication that you are on your way to learning how to make better quality prints, and then possibly upgrade. So that was the very first printer that I have. I still have that. Polaroid, same thing. That was his first printer as well. He didn't get the version 2. He had the version 1, which is still a workhorse. Like these things are workhorses made to really like pump these out, because let's face it, some prints, once you actually put everything together and the print begins, they can range anywhere from 3 to 4 hours to 24 hours to 48 hours. Depends on the detail that's in it, how much filament you're using to print, all that good stuff. So these things are made, they're supposed to run for hours on end. Um, Downside to this particular printer is, as I said, because it is small, you can't make large prints. Um, Additionally, if for some reason there's a power outage and the power cuts out, and the print is not complete, you will actually have to start that print all over again, no matter where it ended. So that's, for me, that was kind of like the big issues as far as this printer was concerned. And but it was a really, really good start. I would highly recommend this printer to anyone who is in the starting phases of putting this, getting 3D printing into your scope of whatever it is that you're doing. Right. I eventually, as you would expect, was not happy and satisfied with not being able to make more detailed miniatures. The larger, the like when I say, all right, so I'm gonna say a couple of things. When I say like large miniatures, and and speaking more in terms of Dungeons and Dragons, I was talking more when I say large miniatures. I'm thinking like giants. Like giants are maybe like 2 inches tall, 2.5, depending on the type of giant. Those came out pretty well. Those were never an issue. And unfortunately for some of the giants, depending on size, I was not able to actually print them at full size because again, this is a pretty small printer, and the details not great. Like you'd be surprised how much detail you could get out of this tiny printer, but not the best. Right. So eventually, I upgraded to the Ender 3. And you're probably saying to yourself, why is the Ender 3, which is a much larger printer, can do a hell of a lot more quality prints, is also a filament printer, why is it cheaper than the small Monoprice? No, Southern. This is actually the regular Ender 3, and that's what I have. I don't have the Pro. Um, I just got a regular Ender 3, and you might be saying, why is it $179 as opposed to the Monoprice, which is smaller, does not give you much more detail, and it just doesn't make sense. The reason I when I was pulling all of this stuff up, I was asking myself the same question. One, around this time for the holidays, they do tend to actually lower the price for the Ender 3 and some of their other models. However, they just recently came out with the Ender 3 version 2. And I was actually looking at this before the stream started. And the reason for, as you can see now, the price of $262 is increased. They've improved some of the things on the regular Ender 3, and again, this is not the Pro, because there are different types. There's a Creality 10. There's a number of different ones, but the Ender 3 again, I'm trying to think in terms of not only the ones that I have, but seem to be good for beginner 3D printer. They added a different UI, different display, which is right here. It seems to be a little more user friendly. Their drivers seem to be, the software and everything seems to be smoother. Let's see. Do each of these printers have their own software? Do you usually use a proprietary kit? Okay, Coyote, good question. I'm gonna get to that, and the simple answer, the short answer is yes. They do have. It is called Cura. It is free. Is a free software that you can download. They are constantly updating the software, and I'll show you exactly how I use it and what I use. But yeah, it is a free software that helps to slice the. Again, now I'm gonna actually get to some terms. It helps to slice the actual prints to make it readable for these printers, and you can actually use Cura for both the Monoprice and the Ender, and again, totally free. Even when they do the updates and everything, you just have to. When we get into it, you just for miniatures and terrain specifically, you will have to learn how to tweak the specific settings, and I'll get into that as well. But the Ender 3 version 2, again, I don't have the version 2. I have the original, the first one that I brought up, um, the regular Ender 3. This is the one I currently have. And after almost 2 years, because I was with the Monoprice Mini, I was using exclusively for a year, and then upgraded because I just wanted more detail. I wanted better detail, and a number of different people that I saw online who do this specifically uh, would always recommend the Ender 3. It was between the CR10, which Southern is talking about, and the Ender 3. So I went with the Ender 3. And again, it was around the holidays, so I did get a really good price for it. But this is the one I currently have. The version 2, I am actually looking. I am very excited to look into it to see what kind of all of the improvements that they did for it. Yes, it was absolutely a Christmas discount. Um, but this will probably help answer the question why the larger printer, which gives more detail and is a workhorse, is cheaper than the Monoprice. So uh, my recommendation would probably be, if you're looking to get into the hobby, if you're looking to, but you don't want to spend a lot of money, and you just don't want to, you don't need the smaller printer, and you have space for the larger, because this printer is much bigger than the Monoprice. I would absolutely say then your best bet, investment wise, is to probably get the Ender 3, or let's see what the CR10, um, see what the CR10 is going. CR10, a little more expensive. Um, Even the base stock one, you're looking at $349. Um, CR10 definitely. Uh, if you're looking for that next step above the Ender 3, the CR10 is a great one. But again, if you're looking at being cost effective, Ender 3 is probably the way to go. Um, and here's another part. The Monoprice comes put together. Everything you saw with the Monoprice, as you see it right now, is how you receive it. It is put together. You literally only have to do a few things to get it started out of the box. But once you do those things, same day you could probably get it started within an hour, maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on your on how much you're putting into it. The Ender, however, that comes completely disassembled. You have to put that together yourself. There are a number of great, if on YouTube, and I will actually be going. I will be sharing with you two of the individuals that I personally have. I continuously follow them and subscribe to them because they've given me the tools I need to put everything together as best possible. And you, if you're into the hobby, you might have some different individuals that you visit. But one of them actually does have on their YouTube channel a step-by-step how to put together the MP3. And for someone as butterfingers as I am, I was able to put mine together with relative ease. It took me, I'm not gonna lie, on the on the actual video, he does say, it should take you about anywhere from 2.5 hours. It took me about 4 or 5 hours to put together because I went very slow. I didn't want to make any mistakes. I triple checked everything I was doing to make sure. So it took me a number of hours. But using those YouTube videos and taking my time, in the last year and a half to 2 years since I have been using the Ender, I've only had to tweak it due to just regular use. Um, I haven't had to replace anything major, just the things that you would normally sometimes have to replace, such as the nozzles, which I'll get into. Um, and again, things that you would normally have to replace because. But yeah, so if you have the money, if you have the space, the Ender 3 right now, especially again at 79, not bad at all. And let me tell you, I am continuously amazed at the type of detail I get making just miniatures, like regular humanoid sized miniatures. And sometimes even the small ones, like goblins or that. I am amazed at the detail that I get out of it. Now, by no means is it the detail that you get if you buy miniatures like Pathfinder from the store. By no means is it that deep, but it is still good for my use and what I need it for. It's pretty damn good. Especially like for example, if I'm I said goblins before. If I'm making like a small mini army of goblins, right? I don't need them to be super detailed, especially nowadays because I'm not actually sharing a table, face to face with my players anymore. Trust me, when I was doing face to face with all of my players, I absolutely wanted to have super detailed, awesome miniatures because that's cool for them too. But the reality is, now that we're doing most of this digitally, they don't have to be as detailed as long as you get the gist. Uh, but I still, I mean, me, the perfectionist that I try to be, I still do try to have miniatures with Ender 3. Again, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised and amazed with what you can get out of such a large piece of equipment. Now, the other cost associated with both of these is the filament. A filament does not come initially. You do get like a small strand of filament for each of them to do test prints to make sure that you have actually put it together correctly. Each one of them does come with some test prints already included on a small SD card, which is how you actually put your prints into the 3D printer. But it does not come with a full spool of 3D of the filament that you want. Now, depending on the filament that you require, I tend to use one that is a little bit. It's a pro version of which makes my prints less susceptible to breaking or being brittle. And again, everything I'm talking about today, I'm going to be putting in our Discord, sharing all of these links, sharing all of the everything that I'm talking about. But again, I would advise you to try and your own like search online and try and figure that out. But generally, the rolls of filament will cost you anywhere between $20 to $30 a spool, and this depending on how much you print, the spool will last you anywhere from 2 weeks worth of printing to maybe a month and a half. Again, it depends on what you are actually printing. For example, a number of weeks ago, I began 3D printing some actual buildings for my campaigns. I have not used them yet, but I anticipate there will be some use for them. and they are rather large. I did them in multiple sizes, and because they were larger prints, I made them a little more solid. They weren't hollow inside. The infill for them was a little thicker than normal. I was able to make about 4 or 5 of these houses before the roll started to actually go. And that took me anywhere, that was about 2 weeks worth of printing before that filament roll spent. But if you're doing miniatures, much smaller, using a hell of a lot less filament, um, even if you're continuously using it and you're looking at maybe a month and a half, sometimes even before that roll will go. Um, again, it's that's the kind of investment you want to start thinking about. Like, all right, I bought the 3D printer, but in order to print from it, I'm gonna have to continuously buy material. Uh, Filament, not that expensive at all. Yeah, I'll actually do that in a minute. We'll definitely show, uh, and that is a quick print, so it is not the best print. I tried to do that as quickly as possible, get it done within a day. But I will absolutely show. I'm going to show some of the prints that I've done with the Anders. Get a good idea of what you can. So yeah, so these are the Monoprice and the Ender 3. Those are the 3D printers I currently own. Those are the Monoprice is what I started with. Ender 3 is what I currently have. There's a good chance sometime in the future I will probably upgrade from there as well. But right now I'm super happy with what I have. It's doing great. I see no reason to upgrade at this point. Now the other type of print 3D printer is the resin printer. Now, from the searches that I have done for specifically for tabletop for gaming, the resin printer that a lot of people recommend happens to be the Anycubic Photon. And as you can see, even with it being on sale, that is quite an investment to start with. Now, it doesn't take up a lot of room. It's not very large. It's about the size. I think it's just a little smaller than Ender 3, which is not too big. So it's not going to take up a lot of room. However, with resin printers, the thing you actually have to think about. There's a couple of things. The resin smell. It's the resin itself. The resin goo, the technical term as they call it. The resin itself gives off fumes, which are not 100% safe for inhalation, as you expect. So, if you do decide that this is the way you want to go with a resin printer, you absolutely have to find a dedicated space for it that is well ventilated and probably not anywhere near people, small animals, things like that, because it will give off fumes. Not only during printing, from what I understand, but just the resin itself does give off fumes that are not safe. And when I say not safe, obviously people print with this all the time. I mean, like consistent inhalation, exposure to it without the proper mask, and whatever, all the things that you would need to protect yourself. That's what I mean by not safe. So you have the price. You have now have to make sure it has a dedicated space just for itself, away from people and animals and things like that. However, of the 3D printers that anybody, a hobbyist, I guess you would call us, can get and use for 3D, this gives the most detail. This gives the highest amount of detail, as close as it can be to actually store-bought miniatures. I have again. I've seen a number of people online use this. And I know other friends of mine I've seen on my feeds who share some of their prints using resin printers. Amazing detail, amazing quality, um, and the difference also. And I'm now again going to start getting into technical terms with the filament printer. It prints on by layers, right? So it will print a layer, it'll slightly move up, print another layer, and that's how the print is built. And because of that, you sometimes can see the layer lines in your prints. You can see those tiny little imperfections of these layer lines. Sometimes, really, you can see a lot and it's trouble. Your goal is always to kind of minimize that as much as possible. But it happens with filament print. With the resin printers, there are no lines. It does not print that way. It prints almost in one solid piece, so you don't get that, and so the detail becomes clearer. Um, Sanding them down fixed layer lines, or are there more discoloration of? Well, it depends on what you're doing, Coyote. With the actual, it depends on what you're doing with the miniature, right? Or whatever it is that you're printing. So, with my miniatures, one, they're tiny. They're so tiny, it doesn't it doesn't for me anyway. Like I'm not gonna speak for others who, but for me, there's no point in me doing the sanding, and kind of doing that because yes, there is discoloration, slight discoloration when you do sand. However, if you're going to paint that miniature, if you're going to paint that model, it doesn't matter because once you actually do start your painting, that discoloration goes away and it doesn't show through the actual. And there's different ways to actually sand it. You can wet sand. Wet sanding is actually a pretty decent way to do that with where you actually just wet the piece of the sanding material that you're using, and you keep it consistently damp, and you kind of do that, and it will actually help uh, sand those kind of layer lines away to a very smooth surface without sanding so much that you are actually destroying. Um, then there's a couple of other ways to do it. You can actually there's a like an acetone dip that you can use. I don't use any of that stuff. I try my best to avoid uh, using anything that has toxic fumes. I do my best to avoid all of that when I can. Fumes. I hate fumes. Now, granted, I have lots of space where I do have lots of ventilation. I can do it if I want to, but me personally, I tend to avoid that. But there are a number of different ways to. If you're going to print the model, and you have the time, absolutely have the time to do that. By all means, do that. There are plenty of. I didn't bring any of them up, but I can definitely uh, recommend some videos and some places where you can actually see how to do that if you want to. But again, I will say using the Ender 3, uh, I rarely have that issue with layer lines that they are that much that immediately as soon as I pull it off of the printer, I can actually start painting it. Not worry. Like the painting process itself just kind of eliminates some of the visual layer lines that are there anyway. So it would, I guess the best way to say it would be experiment a little. See what works best for you, depending on one again what printer you get and what your process is. What are you using the model for? What are you using? Um, that would be my recommendation. But with the resin printer, once it comes off and once it's dry and ready to, you don't even have to worry about that. You don't even have to worry about layer at all. But again, the resin comes at a cost. Again, I don't know, as I've not been a resin printer hobbyist. Um, I don't know how much the resin costs, but I would assume that it is a little more expensive than filament. If I'm wrong, please let me know if you know. But I don't think you can get the resin for anywhere between $20 and $30. That would be my understanding. If I'm wrong, I do apologize. But the initial investment, as you can see, is rather costly for a resin. But if you're looking for long-term investment that is going to give you high, high quality scaled prints, this might be. So those are in basically those are the top choices at the moment. And again, I'm just speaking from my personal experience and from the searches that I've done, based on recommendations from people who use them for tabletop gaming. Those are pretty much those are the ones that you. And again, figure out what your investment, what are you willing to invest in it. I will absolutely say, with the money that I have put into my two printers, including filament, the amount of miniatures that I have been able to far exceeds the cost I have already put it. I've already made my money back and then some, I guess would be the best way to put it, with all of the prints I've been able to. And I'm actually going to show you some of the prints that I have done to give you an idea of what that looks like. So, Mama wanted me to show you the mausoleum that I just recently printed. So I'm going to go grab that. Give me. Now, by no means should you take a look at this and say, "Oh, why is he recommending the?" This was literally done quick, fast, and in a hurry. Um, I needed this print done as quick as possible for for the for the game. And again, this is an instance of I was inspired to write this particular mod based on this print. Like I saw this print, and I was like, "Ooh, that would." Oh, and I came up with the idea, but this was printed on the fastest setting to get it done as quickly as possible. This was on the Ender 3. Now you really can't see it because of the camera, unfortunately. You can absolutely see the layer lines in this. And I actually printed it in two pieces. It was the roof and the actual building part. All right, I'm gonna see. No, the camera's not gonna allow me. You can see the layer lines in this. It is a beautiful model. Don't get me wrong. I love this model. But if my players, I'll put it to you this way, if my players were at the table with me, I probably would have put some time into painting it, sanding it, and eliminating a lot of the layer lines that are visible on this print. And that is one example. When I say that I have absolutely made my money back in that, the way I'm thinking about the cost effective way of doing this. How much am I spending on materials and the actual printer itself? Even though I bought it a number, based on how much do miniatures cost, like store bought miniatures and terrain. how much do they cost, and comparing that cost. There, for me, there's no question that I have absolutely came out ahead. This is just another example. Pull this over. I'll block my face a little bit. All right, so of this thing. All right, so essentially, what is this? Uh, and this is what I try to be as cost effective as I can. So the spools of filament that I used, once this filament was gone, I was actually able to reuse them to create a multi-tiered display for my 3D prints that also came off of them. Right? I bought a Lazy Susan kind of like piece on the bottom. I glued it to the bottom so it also spins. Right? But on this display, and you can't actually see like the bottom three displays, fortunately. But on this display, 90% of these minis are 3D printed. There are some store-bought miniatures on here, but for the most part, they are all printed. So, for example, I do actually have some prints from the Monoprice on. Well, so yeah, so here's a perfect example. So this is an orc. You know what? I'm gonna try something. Hold on a second. And I'll apologize for shaky cam because I got something. So, oh, won't let me do it. I apologize. So, all right. So, all right. This might actually be a better. So, these are skeletons. These were printed on the Monoprice. Right? Don't have to be perfect. Right? Just skeletons because I needed a lot of them. But decent enough. This one. This was also printed on a Monoprice. This is a ghoul. Sorry. I apologize. Yeah, that's a little. That was pretty. So as I said, Monoprice is pretty good. If you don't have a lot of space, and you still want to do some stuff, even the small miniatures, you can. And then when I got the Ender, I actually started batch print miniatures. So again, another benefit to the Ender 3 is with the Monoprice, maybe I could print like 1 or 2 miniatures at a time. Because it was tiny, it was small, I was asking it to do a lot of stuff. Was that it wasn't particularly made for. And when I got the Ender 3, I was like, oh, I'm going to put it through its paces, I'm going to test it out. And so this is a Barbarian print. I was able to do might actually be able to see them. Spin it. Able to do about 4 or 5 of these guys at. And then I painted them. But again, I mean, all of these miniatures here, and this isn't even all of my miniatures. I do have sitting on the table where I have my battle map. I have just plastic bins filled with printed miniatures, including giants, because we did do Storm King as another. So you do have. I mean, again, there's a lot you can do with these prints. A lot you can do with your printer and still be effective as far as what you're trying to show on your game. And again, not everybody uses 3D, but again, I'm talking to those folks who, hey, I've been interested in 3D printing and I'm interested too. All right, so now you figured out how much you want to invest. You've figured out, how much space you have available. You figured out what you want. The program, as I was saying before, I'm actually up. The program is called Cura, Cura, and there is a 3D printer called the Ultimate. And this software is specifically designed with that 3D printer, but the software itself can be used with almost any 3D printer that exists. And they've made it that way. And it's 100% free, totally free. Right, so. Right. So this is Cura, and this is what's set up for. As you can see over here, it is set up specifically for the Creality Ender. And in this section over here, this is where your investment in time of learning 3D, what the 3D printing settings are going to. This is going to be what you're going to figure. Now, I've been doing this for the last 2.5 months. I still don't know what all of this is. However, I learned enough that I'm still able to do what I need to do. Did I lose the mic? I lose. Yeah, I think. Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. I looked like I lost. So, yeah, what you need. You're gonna spend some time alone, or you're. I did online and what works. Their experience or trying what works for you, because even if they have the same, which is really the person that they're using, not all are creative. So there is going to be somewhat of a learning on and it's going to take. And this is where you might have thought spending the was. Is that better? Ah, there we go. I think I got it. Yeah. All right. So, whereas previously you would have thought, "Hey Zero, good to see you. Thanks for the lurk." Um, whereas you would have thought that all of that money you spent was the investment you need, and that was it. Um, yeah, it's technical issues that I'm definitely gonna have to figure out off stream. I hope you at least heard what I was saying before, and that you didn't lose anything I was saying. Um, yeah, yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. The learning curve continues all the time, all the time. Okay, good, good. Thank you for that. Good to know. All right, so as I was saying, whereas the money you spent on the thank you much, thank you. So all the money that you spent previously, you were like, oh, that was my investment. No, your time into this investment is the big one, and this is the part right now that you're going to be spending a lot of time. Now, if you are, I don't even know the best way. If you are 3D graphically inclined, like my son is, you will figure this out pretty quickly. If you're like me, it's gonna take. It's gonna be a while. Uh, you are absolutely gonna have to learn this and figure out what your specific learning curve is. But I will say that no matter how frustrated you get in learning this, and as Southern was saying earlier, um, no matter how many headaches you get trying to figure out these settings, figuring out the best settings for your prints, no matter all of that, it is absolutely worth the headaches. It is absolutely worth all the time. Thank you, Grumpus Goblin. Thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. Welcome to the stream. Um, I hope this is helping in that if you're interested in 3D printing or just learning about like the hobby, whether it's for your tabletop or not. I hope I'm helping. But thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. The settings themselves are uh, complicated, extensive, yet necessary, because through these settings you are giving instruction to your printer of how you want this. So when your print doesn't turn out exactly the way you think it should be, reality comes, have nobody to blame. Now, if it's not the print settings, if it's an actually like a mechanic, obviously um, you're not going to blame yourself for that. But if it turns out that it's the print itself that's doing, and oh yeah, you know what? Hold on, I'm gonna give me 1 second. I'm gonna be right back. I think my mic is dying on me, so give me 1 second because it keeps getting lower and lower. So, I'm gonna be right back. I'm gonna switch out mics and give me 1 second. Thank you very much. Okay, now we're back. New mic. So this is going to tell us if it's my mic that was dying or if it's the wiring to the mic. But new mic. I think it already sounds better. All right. So as I was saying, the time you're going to take to put into learning the settings, learning how everything works, is going to make the world of difference in what your print is, and it's going to be worth it in the end. So, as I said, I still don't know what all of these things are, but let me see if I can pull it down real quick. I do have some custom settings. Currently, for example, this one is called Cura Miniature 4mm settings. Can't really see it because of that. Let me see if I can. Yeah, that's a little better. All right, so yeah, these are the settings here. And again, this is your build plate. This is kind of a simulation of what your build plate looks like. These are your settings. I have these settings, and these settings specifically came from an individual that I follow because he clearly knows his shit. And when one of the other things I enjoy about this person is that I learned so much about my printer through his videos that it made me a better hobbyist. And that person specifically, I'm terrible with names, but this is his website, Fat Dragon Games. And specifically, right here, his YouTube channel is called The Tomb of 3D Printed Horrors. I'm gonna pull that up real quick. And we'll probably get his name. Because as I said, I am terrible with names. No, okay. Basically he creates his own miniatures. He creates his own terrain. You can purchase these things, but all of his videos on YouTube, obviously for free. Subscribe. As you can see, I've subscribed. There are so many videos on how to 3D print your models. He's the one that actually he has how to build the Ender 3. You can see it assembly right there. He's one of the individuals that I follow specifically for 3D printing. I absolutely 100% recommend this individual. He also on the website, if you go to the resources, this is where I got those profiles for free from him on his website. And again, when you import it into the Cura settings, now you have his specific settings on how he creates his 3D prints. And you can see, and again, if you visit his website, if you take a look at his videos, you can actually see the high detail that he has from an Ender 3. And it's great. But you don't only want to go to one person. You want to look and see if there's someone who jives with you, someone whose energy is good, who also seems to be explaining things in a way you can understand. He is absolutely one of these people. The other person that has been very helpful for me in terms of learning about the settings, learning about my equipment, things like that, is Danny. Again, I don't remember his last name because I am terrible at names. But he goes by the 3D printing DM. This is his website, 3D Printed Tabletop. Not only does, again, similar to the other website, not only does he create his own uh, miniatures, and he has Kickstarters for his things, and they are pretty good. He also shares profiles. Let's see if they come up. Not coming up for some reason. Here we go. Just went. He has the profiles on for the Ender 3, for the Ender 5, for the CR10, right? For the minis, for larger prints like dragons, things like that. Now again, here you could conceivably just get these profiles from these websites, import them into your settings into Cura, and start printing. But the problem, what's going to happen is if something goes wrong, you won't know what to adjust to make it right. And that is why, while these profiles are awesome and amazing, and I use them, I don't use them. I import them, and then I do a test print and see if it works. If it does work, I leave the settings alone. If it's off for whatever reason, I know enough about not only the settings on Cura, but about my own 3D printer that I can start making some guesses about, okay, maybe it's this, or maybe it's that. Do I have to adjust the setting? Do I have to adjust the actual print bed itself? So while settings themselves are great, you still have to put in the time to learn about your machine, to learn about the program, learn what the settings mean. And Danny here, also, if we go back, he does have a YouTube channel also, and he does a great job also explaining in some of his YouTube videos what the settings on the Cura settings themselves mean. If you adjust this setting, this is what happens. If you adjust that setting, this is what happens. And shows you specifically why some prints fail, what that means if your print does this, if your print does that. So between these two websites, between these two individuals, I have learned so much about my printer. I've learned, and again, there are other videos, there are other places online that you can go. Even if you've decided, I don't want to use this for tabletop, I don't want to use this for miniatures, I don't want to use this for terrain, I want to use it to make certain things for myself that have nothing to do with gaming, right? They still have a lot to teach you in their videos, regardless of whether you're using it for tabletop or gaming. And there are plenty of other folks online who have dedicated time to creating these videos to teach you and show you what they've learned and this happened. When this happens, you should do this, or if this happens, you should do that. Look at these things. Critically think about your machine, about the settings in your profiles. So I will say, if you are interested in doing this and think that you're going to basically, it's like plug and play and get it done quickly, I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but that's not going to happen. Okay? That only will happen if you are a technically minded person that 3D printing comes easy to, and you understand all of the settings, you understand all these things, you understand graphic design, you understand all slicer programs and all of these things. If you are that type of person, yeah, this will come super easy to you. But if you are a hobbyist like myself who has never 3D printed before, or has very limited experience with it. Maybe there's whatever it is you do for a living. Maybe there are 3D printed printers at your job, and you've seen them, and you like what they do, but you're not 100% sure how it works. You absolutely have to put in the time to learn about your machine, to learn about the program. Okay, and I will say, the Ender 3, buying the Ender 3 for me, and putting it together helped me learn about the pieces of the machine. Now, granted, I had the Monoprice Mini before I had the Ender 3, so I was already somewhat familiar with some pieces that are kind of universal to 3D printers. But putting it together made me appreciate the machine more. It made me understand what the pieces do and how they fit together a hell of a lot better than with the Monoprice, because that was just all one piece. It came in one piece, all put together already. So that would be another recommendation. But if you're not, again, if you're a person that can't put together mechanical things, and you have to have somebody put it together for you, that might not be the way to go. Just saying. However, again, this is my personal experience, what I learned, and I think that's probably going to be your best bet. You definitely 100% have to learn your machine, the parts of your machine, how to put it together, or just how to replace parts, because eventually, even if you get it, and with the Ender and the Creality, I believe they do have options of receiving it put together, but that increases the cost because they're doing it for you. So if you get it put together, you still need to learn about the pieces of the machine. You still need to learn about what the pieces of it that you're eventually going to have to replace, and why you're going to have to replace them, and what makes them degrade over time. Even when you learn your machine, you're going to have to learn the software, the Cura software, and what the settings mean, and how you're going to make that work for miniatures, for terrain, or whatever it is that you're printing. Please do not walk away from this. If you walk away with anything I'm saying today that'll just rattle around your head about 3D printing, I hope it's, you have to learn your machine and you have to learn the software. You just do. There's no way around it. Actually, there are a couple ways around it, but I mean, the one that comes to mind is you just get somebody to do it for you. Right? That's the best way around it, right? Get somebody to do it for you. But then you're not really thinking about seriously investing in a machine, right? And getting it. So why would you do that? That's the only walk around I can think of. So yeah, so these two individuals, Danny 3D Printing DM, his website is 3D Printed Table. And again, I'm going to put everything I'm talking about is going to go into Discord. And if you have any questions, not only can you please ask them on the stream, because already folks are asking some great questions. You can ask in chat, but feel free to just drop me a line, whether it's on my Twitter, DM me, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's on our Facebook page, ask me questions. I mean, I'm super open to sharing all of this stuff with everybody. So, none of this is, I don't want any of this to feel like, I'm sharing secrets. These are not secrets. These are things that I found that I wish other people helped me with and told me how to do. Don't get me wrong. My son, who inspired me to do this, tried to explain to me how to do all these things, but he's a very technical minded person, super intelligent, gets that from his mother, doesn't get that from me. So I had to, okay, thank you. I will take everything that you said under consideration. I will do those things. I still also need to learn somebody who can explain it to me in ways that I understand. Not, it's nothing against my son. Um, it's nothing against my son. It's just I couldn't understand a lot of what he was saying, and it made complete 100% sense to him, but it's just I didn't understand. So I had to go and search and look for folks that could understand it, could explain it to me in a way that I understood. And those two individuals uh, were my go-tos. You might find someone else that does it better for you. Fat Dragon Games and 3D printed tabletop, right? Um, and that's great. If you find them, great, and please share that with me because I does just because I found these guys after looking after for many other uh, people who have done this and tried to learn from them. Just because I did all that doesn't mean that I saw everybody, that I figured all of them out. I'm still learning. This is an ongoing learning process, and I like that. I like that this hobby you have to adjust because the Cura programs consistently are consistently updated, and again, 100% for free. Um, but what happens is that when Cura updates consistently, uh, the profiles sometimes stop working or don't work 100% the way they did. The workaround for that is pretty easy. You just keep using the same Cura, the same version of Cura that works, right? But occasionally, Fat Dragon Games, 3D printed tabletop, they will do their best to update their profiles to the latest version of Cura, but it does take some time sometimes. Sometimes Cura is updating so quickly they don't have time to actually update it, and you're still working on an older version. But just because you're working on an older version and using an older version of Cura and still using the older stuff, if it works, keep using it, right? There's just nothing. But when they update it, you do want to try and use the updated version of Cura when you can, because sometimes those changes are significant and will actually create better detail, uh, better prints, and that's what ultimately that's what they're trying to do when they keep updating, is try to make everything a lot better. Um, so yeah, so now you figured out which printer you want to get. You've dedicated time, you've dedicated some money into figuring out which printer you want, gotten your materials, uh, you've started learning whether it was before the purchase or after the purchase. You're starting to put some time in now. You're learning about your machine. You're learning about the process. You're learning about the software, what all these settings mean, what the prints are going to look like. That's great. Now you just have to start testing everything out. Uh, and I'm not gonna lie, that's probably where you're gonna get the most headaches. Testing, testing it out, testing all the prints out. You're going to absolutely, you're gonna pull your hair out, and if you don't have hair, you're gonna get headaches. Or if you have hair, you're gonna get headaches and pull your hair out. But believe me when I say, ultimately, it is worth it. If you are looking to get or print multiple miniatures, make terrain, create buildings, things like that, and you want to do it in house on your pace at your time, and it's fun for you, because this is all fun for me. Not just obviously DMing, but creating, like printing all this stuff out, finding these prints. Um, they're amazing. Like it's so fun for me. Because the other thing, like, you don't always have to print miniatures. So if you watch my D&D stream, You've probably seen me pull this up once or twice. I printed this up. I want to show it to you. Hold on a second. So I wanted a new dice tower. I'm not gonna lie. There are some wooden dice towers that I want that are super expensive, but I still want a cool dice tower. So I went and I found somebody who made this file, and I'm gonna share with you a couple places after I show this to you to make this dice tower. Um, so yeah, so essentially, the dice go in through the eye sockets, roll out through here. It's freaking awesome. It's amazing. Um, and again, this is not something that I would normally like show my players, or this is just for me. But it's pretty cool. I'm going to eventually sand it. I'm going to paint it. Uh, hey, too. Hey, yeah. It's beautiful, and it's free. You can find the file for free. So where do you find these files? Well, it depends on what you're looking for. So the first place that I found, I didn't actually find. Uh, Once again, my son Polaroid was the one who introduced me to it. And if it wasn't for him, again, most of this wouldn't be happening. Um, so the place he introduced me to first is called Thingiverse. And on Thingiverse, you can find, if there is a 3D printed, if there's a file that exists to be 3D printed, it's usually on Thingiverse, right? So this was the first place I went to, and you could find some. I mean, look, just on the splash page right there. Like the first thing you see is a two-way screw, and then the second thing, an X-wing kit card, right, to improve an X-wing model. A micro SD wallet, card wallet, a petite paint palette that you can fit around. This is actually really good for artists. Anybody who paints, that's actually pretty fucking cool. Um, I remember in high school because I went to a specialized high school uh, where I actually majored in art and fine arts, and I remember when we would paint, I would actually just, and Bob Ross used to do this a lot too. He would sometimes like paint on his hand. Um, that is a perfect alternative right there. That is awesome. Uh, I like that. But I mean, this is a perfect example. There are so many things on here. Um, and if you are a person who can create 3D models, the files for these 3D models, you can upload them here to Thingiverse. That's what this is for. Now, there are a lot of issues with the site itself. Um, and when I say issues, I mean more in the line of navigating it and downloading. Sometimes it's hit or miss. But they have a lot of really good files on here. But this is where I actually found my first files for 3D printing anything. This is where I found the file for that dice tower. But there are a couple of other places. Now, obviously, you saw all of those 3D printed models that I had on the display. And your first question is probably, after seeing that, where the hell do you get all those models? Now, I started here at Thingiverse, and I quickly realized that many of the files that I was looking for were coming from one person. Now there are a lot of people who, in the last, I want to say, last 2 years or so, have become have begun doing more Dungeons and Dragons type of models. And again, they're all free, which is great. But there was one person who was continuously pumping them out, and he had been doing it far more than 2 years. I believe he's on his fourth year or fifth year doing these, and he still has prints here in Thingiverse, but he has discussed with many people about the some of the issues that he's had with Thingiverse and navigation. And his name is Miguel Zavala. Uh, and most people who do this know him as MZ 4250. And he has a Patreon, as you can see right here. And what he does now, granted, you, I would say, I always say, try to support artists if you can, when you can. Okay, because make no mistake, what he is doing is art. All right, he has literally went through the monster manual from D&D and created every single creature. He has gone through some of the campaign books, and any creature in those campaign books he has created. He offers all of those for free. So if you do support him, you're supporting his efforts to do this and continue making free models. But he also does things on commission. He does, by supporting him on Patreon, he does also give you access to his Google Drive before before they come out for free. You get just early access to it. And there are other various things. I'm not pimping this out for him. We don't even know each other. All I know is that this is what he does. You can also find, and just kind of show you what he does. He says you can access them all for free here. And that is Shapeways. Right? This is his profile here. All you have to do to get all of these for free, all you have to do is create an account in Shapeways, and that's it. You'll be able to access all of these files, download them for free, and then print them up on your printer. And he's been doing this for about, I believe, 4 to 5 years. Now, that doesn't mean he is the only person doing it. But I will say that he is done the most extensive work in 3D modeling specifically for Dungeons and Dragons. Now there were some initial, like, he's offering them all for free, so Wizard of the Coast doesn't have any issues with this. Initially, there was, from what I understand, there was some back and forth between him and Dungeons and Dragons and Wizards. But since he offers everything for free, there's no issues here. But again, he does do commissions. He does, like all of these. Let me see if I can make these a little bigger. Now you can see that there are costs associated with some of these. That is if he prints it up for you and then sends it to you. You are not paying for, you're technically not paying for the actual model. You are paying for materials and time. But he offers all of these files for free. And he is only one of a number of very, very talented individuals that create these files and offer them for free on many different places. Okay. So that's the, again, this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is a very broad conversation, broad topic. We're probably not going to get through everything today, but I want to offer just like some points and some ideas that might get you, interested. If you're watching this, you're obviously interested on some level. Um, but maybe some of this is going to kind of tip you over the edge on whether, yeah, if you've been trying to decide if you want to actually make that investment, right? There's so many resources to help you out with all of this. Let's see. So the very last thing I will show, I'm going to share with you right now, is what really has to do with more of the 3D printing. So I showed you Miguel Zavala's stuff. He's got the most extensive, and when I say most extensive, I mean you can literally find animals. Like if you're a druid, say for example you're playing a druid in a D&D campaign, or even Pathfinder, right? If you're playing a druid and you're going to shapeshift or wild shape into different animals and creatures, you can do something like what I do. Is I go to Michael's, and I'll buy like, oh, that's really smart of me. I'm trying to show a green frog with my green screen. Here's better. Yeah, I can. You go down to Michael's and you buy like the small little animals. They come in like the packs, right? Some DMs do that. If here's my thing, if I can't 3D print it in time, or I can't 3D print it well, I will purchase it. That's usually how I go about doing this stuff. But there are so many different people. And Miguel, like he's showing you the animals, he has like almost all the animals that you can be in D&D. I mean, his stuff is really extensive, but there are so many people. So, how do you find those people? How do you find the models? If, say, for example, you are getting frustrated with Thingiverse, like I happen to get sometimes, what you do is you can go here. Welcome to the mini index, right? This is great. It's theminiindex.com, and again, all of these things are going to go into our Discord, so you'll be able to find them if you like. But the great thing about the mini index, not only will you find Miguel Zavala in here, if you go to browse minis, okay, now what you actually see here are the most recent things that have been updated in a number of different places. So the mini index takes Thingiverse and Shapeways and a couple of other different sites that offer files, miniature files, whether they're terrain, whether they're miniatures, that kind of thing, and consolidates them in this website. And you will be able to find, based on what you're looking for, from different sites, the thing that you need. So, for example, now here's the thing, some of the sites you have to pay for the files, right? But say you don't want to, just click free minis only, right? And we will say goblins, right? Goblins, everybody needs goblins. Doesn't matter what site. Yeah. Hey, if that's the other thing. I have no issues printing stuff up for people if they don't have access to a 3D printer and it's not the thing they want to do, right? Me and Polaroid do that all the time. Polaroid actually does that, as a side gig. And as I said before, much more talented than I am when it comes to 3D printing. But we both do that. So if you're interested in doing some stuff like that, we could do that as well. But we're talking about goblins, right? So search for goblins. I clicked on free minis only, and now you can see all the different goblins that are available. And right off the bat, boom, MZ4250. That's Miguel, right? But here's another interesting. I use a lot of Duncan Shadow stuff as well, and you can see the little icon right here that says where the site is. Thingiverse, right? It's on Thingiverse. Then you have Duncan Shadow here. Gamescape 3D has some different types of goblins here, and again, depends on the type of goblin you want. People keep making different types of goblins. Miguel updated some more goblins pretending they are a wizard. So yeah, you got goblins on each other's shoulders. 3 goblins in a coat, right? But you can only get that on Shapeways. But guess what? Look, it's Miguel again. Um, you have a goblin warg archer. They're riding on wargs. Night goblins. So many different goblins, but these are all free. You can find these on the various sites for free. Now, let's unclick free minis, right? And we're going to look for goblins again. Right? Now, look at that. So this is the first result that comes up. That's absolutely going to be paid. And you go and you will find it on another site, which actually you can find some free minis on that site sometimes. But they do mostly, these are people who are looking to sell their files. And it's Mini Factory, right? You go on Mini Factory and boom. This is how much, $5 for these 2 prints of these female goblins. Right? And again, it's dependent on what you're looking for. Right? Depending on the type of goblin you're looking for. Right? You got more from Duncan Shadow that were not free initially. So you're definitely gonna have to pay. Duncan does a lot of stuff. He also has a Patreon, if I remember correctly. Amazing stuff. Does amazing stuff. But again, go to the mini index. It will show you so many different places, so many different types of models, depending on what you're looking for. Yeah. And like I said, I'm really only scratching the surface on this. Yeah. Okay. So good question, DJ Atkins. Material wise, it really depends. So on Cura itself as well, and again, I'm not an expert. On Cura itself, it does actually have a calculator to basically figure out how much your print actually is costing you, both in time, materials, even like how much electricity you're using. Like they try to help you break it down, but generally speaking, the average cost of a regular miniature on an Ender 3 like I have costs anywhere, average speaking, 92 cents to $1.50. Now based that on if you actually went and bought the miniature at a store or online, yeah. Now granted, even the store-bought models are not that expensive either. Like you can get if you go to like a hobby store, hobby shop or whatever, you can actually buy miniatures. Like they can usually come like 2 miniatures in a pack for $5. It's still cheaper if your cost is $1.50 a miniature. 2 miniatures is $3. You're still coming away, a hell of a lot less expensive than $5. Granted, that extra $2 has been put into the packaging, has been put into the detail of the model. I will also say that the models that you buy in the store are a hell of a lot more solid and less apt to break than 3D printed models. But you can change that depending on the type of material you use to print the models. So again, that's going to be initially that's going to be a lot of experimentation trying to figure out how much that is. And again, at the beginning, you might wind up with some prints that are not great, and you wind up, tossing that material because the print didn't come out well or something happened. It does happen. Make no mistake, that is going to happen. But again, it really comes down to, are you willing to put in that time to learn about the machine, to learn about the programming, to really dedicate yourself to making these prints as great as you can? You have to do that. And if you're willing to do that, then after a while, you start to realize that you are coming out ahead no matter how much material you are actually purchasing, right? Again, I bought the Ender 3 was about a year and a half, 2 years ago at this point, and the time that I've put into basically maintenance and stuff like that has been minimal. Things that I've actually had to change on the actual printer itself has been like the actual nozzles that the printer comes out of. Occasionally, you can't use those forever, and they are made to be swapped out. So there are some time and cost in it, but the nozzles themselves, again, inexpensive. But just in the last 3 years, between the Monoprice and the Ender 3, all of the prints that I've created, miniatures, terrain, even like my awesome dice tower, my skull dice tower, even all of those things, if you actually like cost it out, like how much will it cost if I bought all those things, I'm way ahead. I am so way ahead. But again, the what I'm not getting from buying the store bought is guaranteed a guaranteed not that the model itself is going to have much more detail, that the model itself less apt to break or be broken in some way. Right, I am trading some things off by printing them myself. Like the material, the actual filament that I use is biodegradable, which is awesome. But at some point, that's going to mean that my models are not going to last forever. I'm perfectly okay with that. That just means I might have to print some things out again sometime down the line. I'm still using models that I printed out 2 years ago. I don't have any issues with them as right now. Some models, they have like swords. They're like holding swords. Sword tips have broken. It happens. But again, the thing to remember with any 3D printer and anything that you print is the larger you print something, the more detail you will actually get out of it. It's the scale, more detail, depending on the scale, the more detail will come out, the larger it is. And also depending on the settings you use. So you're printing small things. You're going to come away, you're not going to get everything you want. 3D printing, I will say this, right now, at this moment, it might change in the near future, but at this moment, the miniature model market has nothing to fear from the 3D printers that exist. Right? They're not going to lose money from hobbyist 3D printers. But I will say this, the technology continues to get better. It continues to grow. But yeah, DJ Atkins, if you want to commission some stuff, yeah, Polaroid's probably your best bet initially. Like he's probably the one that you want to go to. But if you have any questions, both of us, you can answer us questions about anything, anytime. Feel free. Uh, but yeah, I mean, this is again, we're dipping the toe into the hobby of 3D printing right now, um, and really, there's just so much more to it. So I mean, we're coming down to the end of the stream. I think the thing to remember is the next stream. What I'm probably gonna go into more detail about the Curio program, the files, show you exactly what it looks like, and talk about. I'll have more detailed. I'll have it set up so you can actually see the prints, not the shitty way I just showed you. um, but yeah, next talking with the DM, which will not be next week. It'll be the week after. I do it every other Sunday. We will get into the more specifics of the program, what the prints look like, how to work them, that kind of thing. But I'm gonna put all of these links that I just showed you today in our Discord. So by all means, please take a look. Join our Discord if you haven't already. Take a look at those all the stuff that I'm gonna put. It'll probably be tomorrow. You'll see all that stuff in tomorrow. But take a look if you're interested. Send me any questions that you might have if you're interested. I'm always happy to talk about these things. But as we end tonight's stream, I will say thanks for joining me. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for everybody for the great questions. Grumpus Goblin, thank you for following the channel. Appreciate it. Southern Twist, I don't know if you're still on, but thank you for being our very first Patreon supporter. We do have a Patreon also. If subscribing through Twitch is not something that you want to do, or you're looking for alternatives for how to support what we do here on the stream, we do have a Patreon. So you can see it in chat. It just came up in chat. And take a look. We do have some exclusive merch items that you can only get by being a patron. But Southern Twist became our very first patron, so I do appreciate it. And patrons always get a shout out at the end of our stream. So Southern, thank you very much. Appreciate it. And for everybody else who asked some great questions, who joined us today, who've been interested in 3D printing, thank you so much. Really do appreciate you watching. Appreciate the support that you're giving us. Make sure to follow us to make sure that you don't miss when we're back on. We do have our D&D game that we do every Thursday. Please join us for that if you're interested. But at the very least, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Be good to each other, and most importantly, be good to yourself. All right, we're going to call the stream to an end. We are going to raid a friend of the stream. So while we do end, just stand by, show some raid love to the folks that we are going to stream. The Climbing Chef, he's a good friend of ours. But with that, take care, and we'll see you soon.